All right, we're reviewing a book called Dead Men's Secret. I rate this book at a 1 in 100. You won't see another book like this. At least I haven't. I'm an old man. I have seen many of the stories contained in this book separately, one at a time, in various publications. But there are 969 records in this book that cover things like ancient technology in glasswork and microscopes, geography, astronomy, cosmology, mathematics, metallurgy, large-scale construction, construction techniques, social organization, engineering, mechanical devices, everyday items, clothing, art, medicine, flight, space travel, ancient science, civilization, electricity, weaponry. 969 records that are being systematically hidden, that are being systematically kept secret. And of course the question arises, why? If you're an archaeologist and you're out digging around in the ruins and you come up with a battery, don't you think that you ought to put that on display and say, my God, the civilization had electricity? If you're digging around in the rubble and you pull up something that's metallic and you test it and you say, my God, these people had metallurgy, don't you think we should put that on display in a museum and say, look at this. We were digging around in Babylon, we were digging around in Tyre or Sidon, we were digging around in Egypt, and look what we found. That would indicate that we had an advanced technology. Now, it would also do something politically. It would destroy the theory of evolution, which is a political ideology. It's a fairy tale for adults that we've all been subjected to, which has nothing to do with truth, honesty, or academics. It's a political ideology which is used to keep us enslaved mentally to ideas, political ideas and concepts that are absolutely false. So the author, a guy by the name of Jeffrey Gray, took a look at all of the various examples of these kinds of archaeological finds. And like medicine, you know, most of the medical discoveries are actually made by medical doctors. For instance, I've reported a number of times that we now have 13 cures for cancer. We use 3 out of the 13, cut, burn, and poison. We use those 3. It cures 37% of cancer patients. 63% die. Why don't we use the other 10 cancer cures? Well, it's because it's politically incorrect. You can't do that because of economic reasons. I mean, there's a lot of good reasons why we don't use alternative medical technology or knowledge today, and it basically has to do with follow the dollar. And the same thing is true with archaeology. In fact, the same thing is true with all of the sciences. If there's money to be made, then this is what we're going to do, the truth be damned. Now, as a researcher, as a historian, as a reporter, I like to trace stories back to their origins. And this is a whale of a story called Dead Men's Secrets. Now, I've reported from time to time the Nazca Plateau story. It's 30 square miles sitting up in the Andes Mountains, and on top of the mountains there are these little 18-inch high walls that go for miles and miles and miles. These are not big blocks of rock. These are just ordinary rocks, maybe the size of your head. And they're stacked up in such a way that they make little, you know, probably a foot wide wall, 18 inches high. But the crazy part is that they're in the outline and they're perfect. I mean, if you take a look at the head of a spider compared to his body, it's the right proportion. If you take a look at the length of his legs compared to his body and his head, they're the right proportions. And there's a spider up here on top of the Andes Mountains up in this Nazca Plateau. And I reported it to you last time. And the crazy part of it is it's a very rare spider found in the Amazon basin. You don't find it in Germany or China or the United States. It's a little spider, and it's found over in the Amazon basin. Very rare spider. You don't run across these very often. This spider has a modality of reproduction which you can't see. It's done with his third leg, and you can't see what he's doing without a microscope. And yet this spider, 6 miles long, 4 miles wide, is sitting up on top of this mountain. You can't even see this spider. You wouldn't know that it was a spider. It's just walls of rock until you get up in an airplane 1,000 feet above the ground, and then you can see, well, it's a spider. And the one over there is a monkey, and the one over there is something else. Now, first of all, you have to have airplanes to appreciate the artwork. Secondly, nobody can figure out why in the world anybody would make such artwork. And third, this rare spider over here with its reproductive technique is clearly outlined in the extended third leg, which ends in a void. So the artist or the civilization, the people, the project manager, whoever it was, picked a spider, put this spider in rock 4 by 6 miles, put him on top of a 12,000-foot mountain, and had to have had a microscope in order to have seen this reproductive technique, and then reproduce it in the form of this spider sitting here on the earth. Now, that's the story I told you last time, and that's an awesome story. There's 969 more of these stories in this book. That's why I said this is absolutely wild. It sounds like Buck Rogers science fiction, but it is supported by the actual documents or the actual exhibits. Now, I'm on page 259, and I'm looking at chapter 25, which is entitled Electricity, Ruins That Glow in the Night. Electricity. Could there have been electricity in Solomon's day, or in Abraham's day, or in Noah's day, or in the period between Adam and Eve and the flood? And the answer is an absolute and unqualified yes. There are batteries that have been dug up in Baghdad and put in the British Museum of Natural History in London. The first ones were found in 1885 before they even know what the hell a battery was. So the original archaeologists, when they're digging these artifacts up, dug up batteries, couldn't recognize them because they'd never seen one before. So they stuck it in the museum. Then about the 1950s, somebody's poking around in the warehouse and says, "Oh my God, look at this. This is a battery. Where did this come from?" Well, it came from some archaeological dig that Professor so-and-so did back in 1885. Now, you'd think that they would take that artifact and they'd say, "Oh my God, these people had electricity back here in ancient times." Oh, no, that doesn't fit the theory of evolution. Back in ancient times, men were just emerging, from the Dark Ages. And so because of that, because of this theory of evolution, they just buried it. It's in a warehouse. It sits there. It's photographed. And the photographs are here in the book. So it isn't something that's science fiction. It isn't something that's a lie. It's there, but it isn't being reported. And I'm here to ask the question, why not? Why not report the facts? Why not report the truth? If it doesn't fit with our theory, then I guess we have to change our theory. That's the scientific way. It's the scientific principle. Well, now, it may sound astonishing, but it was true. On a trek through the forbidding Mato Grosso region of Brazil in 1925, Colonel P.H. Fawcett was challenged by native reports of mysterious cold lights in some ruined cities of the jungle. Not only that, there existed, it was claimed, a city still living, inhabited, illuminated at night. Could this really be? Might there be some still surviving remnant of a long-lost civilization which was using forgotten knowledge? So Fawcett came out averring that he had glimpsed one of these jungle cities. He re-entered the region to further pursue his passion, but this time he disappeared without a trace. And it's noteworthy that few have ever set foot in this terra prohibita and then returned. It's a lost world. Indeed, it is a land infested with enormous swamp creatures, wild beasts, and wilder men. This region is generally bounded by the Rio Xingu and the Rio Tapajos, that's T-A-P-A-J-O-S, and the Amazon rivers. In regard to the supposed jungle lights, I'm somewhat intrigued. The existence of devices which provided lightning at night in ancient times cannot be questioned, because so many classical writers have described them. I was dumbfounded to discover this. Until 1890, we, in modern times, possessed only candles, torches, and oil lamps, and it is easy to think that this was always the case. However, we must now regard the past use of lightning and electricity as a historical certainty. In the pre-flood era, electricity may have played a vital role in the operation of the Ark of Noah during the Great Flood. Referring to the Ark, two Hebrew words are translated as window in the English Bible. In one reference, in Genesis 8, verse 6, the Hebrew word chalon, C-H-A-L-L-O-N, meaning opening, is used, the window through which Noah released the bird. The outer or the other reference, Genesis 6, verse 16, uses a different word. It's spelled T-S-O-H-A-R, sohar, which is translated as window, but does not mean window or opening at all. Where it is used 22 times in the Old Testament, its meaning is given as a brightness, a brilliance, a light of the noonday sun, referring to something that glistens, glitters, or shines, or a light which has its origins in a shining crystal, according to many Jewish scholars of the traditional school. Now, for centuries, Hebrew tradition has described the Sohar as an enormous gem or pearl hung in the ark, which, by some power within itself, illuminated the entire vessel. Now we come to the Sumerian legends. In the preparation of the huge boat, Utu, Methuselah, brought his rays of the sun into the boat in order to give it light. In California, again, regarding that device resembling a spark plug found inside sedimentary stone, examination showed an outer hexagon layer of an unknown substance enveloping a 3/4 inch wide cylinder made of solid porcelain or ceramic. Circling the ceramic cylinder were rings of copper. In the center of the cylinder was a 2 millimeter shaft of bright metal. The shaft was magnetic. The magnetic shaft was corroded at one end, but the other end was affixed to a spring or helix of metal. The finely shaped ceramic and metallic shaft and copper components